Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a song for Pride Month, something selected by the community. This one came from Garrett, The Magnetic Fields, It's Only Time. Lead member Stephen Merritt is gay and one of America's premier songwriters. It's Only Time is one of the most beautiful love songs ever written. So that's what we're going to check out today. This comes off of their album that's just titled I, as you can see on the right side of that album artwork. Let's dive into it and see what the Magnetic Fields is bringing to the table today. A beautiful foundation for the vocals. Lots of moving parts, intricately placed and interwoven.
What could stop this beating heart once it's made a vow? It's only time.
A little bit of tension put in there, some dissonance harmonically.
If rain won't change your mind,
A little bit of a sonic change. Yeah, there's panning going on. This violin.
Won't change my heart at all.
Interesting. Oh, there's a fun little oboe over here, trombone maybe. It's gone now.
Lock this chain around my hand. Throw
There's actually a lot of harmonic dissonance.
only time. It's only time. It's only time. Years falling like grains of sand mean nothing to me.
The deeper I listen, the stranger ideas that stand out. It's kind of bonkers.
If snow won't change your mind, let it fall. The snow won't change my heart, not at all. I'll walk your lands. I'll walk your lands and swim your sea. And swim your sea. Marry me. Marry me.
Even these two bells right here, it almost sounds like they're harmonious dyads, but slightly tuned a little sharp or a little flatter than the other.
I will
I'm not going crazy. Like, other people hear this, right?
marry me. Marry me.
Such a peculiar harmony.
Stop loving you 100 years from now.
even like what? Huh? No. Oh, such a bizarre love song. Like on the surface, it's bright, positive, happy, cheerful, little bits of celebration put in there. But like, there's so much tension and dissonance and unorthodox decisions put in here for what the song is about for me to really lean into that. Like at the beginning of the track, I was like, hey, this is beautiful. We got all these moving parts. They're working together really well. But as the song progressed and I got more comfortable with the surface level and I started dipping into what's happening beneath it, the stranger ideas I found. In fact, during our second verse, there is a quiet, I don't know what it was. It was either a cello or an electric guitar with a little bit of distortion on it. Um, Something sort of buzzing quietly in a lower register underneath that second verse in harmonically dissonant ways, playing notes that were clashing with what everybody else was. Another part that stands out to me is the bells. What sounded beautiful at the beginning ends up having a bit of tension there at the end. And the best way I can describe it, as I mentioned, was that I think that what they're playing is harmonious, but that the two instruments are tuned just a little bit out of sync with each other. There's this, you know what it is? All right, this is going to be bizarre because I don't know if this is really the best metaphor for this, but it's audio sonic based uncanny valley, which I don't understand how that can exist. What the uncanny valley is regarding visual ideas such as CGI or even robotics and AI is when you can see something that looks very, very, very close to realistic or human, but actually because it looks so close, it's the little things that stand out the most. And so your brain tells you, like, dude, this is like 90% right, but like, there's also some stuff that's just not right, and it actually looks worse than if something were only 70% accurate. And basically, as the technology begins to get more and more realistic, there is this valley that dips near the top, and it's this uncanny valley where it reaches a point where it's not just, oh, that's obviously a computer generated image, to wait, this actually looks kind of weird. That's why they call it the uncanny valley. It's so close to looking realistic, and because of that, its realism dips way down, and eventually we'll come out of that and shoot back up, and uh, hopefully whatever we're working with, graphics or robots or whatever, will reach that point where it surpasses that area and becomes more realistic again. And that's what's happening here, but for harmony. There's so many things about this that should be completely harmonious. This should be a completely major chord song where everything is just bright and cheerful and happy, and there's just something about it that's a little off, and I can't place it, but it makes the whole song sound off kilter. It makes the whole thing sound uncanny in a way. It's an uncanny brightness, an uncanny happiness, an uncanny major chord. I don't know that that's a thing. But there's just these little bits of tension, of dissonance that happen everywhere. I think one of the more unorthodox decisions here is the ending of the song. We had some 8 bars, maybe 16, of just the instrumental stuff at the end. The cello lead with the bells and the piano, just going for that brighter sound, generally speaking. And with 13 seconds to go or something like that, the vocalist decides to sing again. And my first thought was, dude, you don't have time for this. The song's over. You've had this extended instrumental outro. What are you doing here? And he sings 2 notes at the beginning of a 4 chord progression. He sings 2 bars. on a 4 chord progression. We get 2 chords, and then the song fades out. We have no resolution to that progression. And it's not even just that the progression sounds like it should be longer. This is the same 4 chord progression we were just listening to in the outro, the instrumental bit. And we've just chosen to go with the first two and not the leading chord into the resolution chord. Why? What is the purpose of all of these unorthodox elements that make the song feel less resolved, that make it feel more tense or anxious or dissonance than I think it's supposed to be going for? It really makes me want to dig into the lyrics, but it was introduced to me from Garrett as a beautiful love song. And I kind of believed that in the first 30 seconds, but the more I listen, the less I can get on board with that. It's really bizarre. It reminds me a lot. I think it was last week. It was last week. It was for Catchy Choruses Week. We checked out the Turtles, Happy Together, which I've always kind of assumed was this positive song about being happy alongside somebody else. But I'd only ever heard a portion of it. And actually hearing the whole song and digging through the lyrics, I was like, wait, no, there's some really unsettling elements to the music here. And that's what I'm getting here. I expected something positive and fun and happy, and I'm kind of getting that, but not all the way. It's a very surface level read of it. Now, I do have a lot of things to praise on this on more of a technical level. First of all, is just the plethora of sounds and timbres. I thought it was awesome that we introduced the song with 4 sounds. We had the guitar, the piano, the vocals, I think we had the bells there as well. Eventually, we added in some saxophone. I heard like a trombone or something off to the right for a moment in that first chorus. We just introduced a bunch of new instrumentation. We go back to that first set of instruments to hit another verse, and then we explore more instruments in that second chorus. I thought it was just very cool to introduce so many different sounds into this. It's looking at the artist's image right here on Spotify, it looks like there's only 4 people in here. I'm kind of curious how this gets recorded. Maybe they have guest musicians, or maybe they're just multi-instrumentalists and they can play all these. Now that I think about it, we really didn't have more than 4 instruments really at any one time. So they could have them all set up on a stage and rotate as need be, which is pretty cool. You don't see that too often. Anyways, I have no idea how they accomplish it live, how they accomplished it in the studio, but it is something that I think allows the song to feel fresh from moment to moment and feel a bit more diverse um, and expansive than a lot of songs that tend to introduce their instruments at the beginning and has the same instruments you'll hear for an entire song, for an entire album, for some bands, their entire career. And so I just enjoy having the plethora of timbres present here. The other thing that stands out to me is the intricacy of the layering in the composition. I mentioned this right from the start. Everybody is sort of playing individual melody lines, but they're all feeding into other instruments' breaks where they might have taken a stop or decided to hold a note out. Another instrument might begin to fill that space. They also harmonize in ways. We'll get these dyads and triads, these stacked chords coming in from all the instruments playing simultaneously. They all have different accent points. So you might hear an accent over here, and then one over here, and then a couple in the center, and then they'll both accent together, and then they'll accent by themselves, and it just makes the song sound like it's bouncing around everywhere. All these pieces work together so well, like little cogs in a clock, to create this more intricate machine. And this is a song that consistently showcases that it is more than the sum of its parts, and it all has to do with how the instruments go together. We don't have the traditional sense of foundation, harmony, rhythm, and melody. Everybody is sort of doing all of that simultaneously, aside from harmony, and the harmony comes from the combining of all of these sounds. They're all playing melody, but at any one time you can hear all 3 of their notes, or all 4 of their notes, or however many instruments are playing, and that's going to give you the chord for that moment in time. And through that, we can hear the chord progression, especially as the whole band rises and lowers in pitches, as the chords rise and lower in key. So I think that's really great. I love intricate music like this, and I love finding composers who can write like this. That's not to say that the more modern, traditional style, modern and traditional, good job, Brian. A lot of modern music utilizes it, but it is something that can be found in older music as well, of just having like a chord bed and then maybe like a bass and drum on top of that to give some rhythmic feel, and then your lead melody on top. There's a lot of music like that. It's not bad in any way. In fact, I love a lot of music like that. But when I'm listening to something a bit more cerebrally, really intentfully listening, I love to hear all those intricate lines mixing and matching with each other and creating something that's much larger than, as I said, the sum of its parts. Um, Man, even thinking back to, I'm going to hit a couple of things because my brain's been going this whole time. As I talk, I'm also forming ideas and segues and trying to figure stuff out. There's two more things I want to circle back to. One is the use of post processing in here, part of the production element. There's a part where the violin was panning back and forth. I think it's the only time that I was getting more of an electronic vibe to something, but it was interesting. We did have particular placement, spacing, and staging of the instrumentation throughout the sound sphere. There's a particularity to where everything is surrounding the listener, but I don't think anything moved. It made that one single violin line at the beginning of the second verse stand out. Again, I'm not sure what's up with that. It's another very unorthodox decision to do here, especially as I mentioned, it's more of an electronic idea, and at least in my mind, everything sounds acoustic here, or at least could be acoustic. That's not to say that they aren't using libraries and synthesizers for every single instrument here. Libraries have come a long way, and everything here sounded, well, I should say, but everything here sounded acoustic to me. It sounded like it was actually being played. So yeah, unless you have a violinist who is deciding to play the violin while recording and going back and forth along the microphone. And I guess it would have to be two microphones, right? A left and a right? Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's how you would record stereo, right? You would have to have two inputs. That makes sense. Um, Anyways, unless the violinist was doing that, it's going to be something done by the producer, which feels like it was the only thing in here that would have been along those lines. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, again, going back to the Turtles' Happy Together. There's something about that song that, even though especially the chorus is very bright and cheery, there is this gloom to it. It doesn't overshadow, it doesn't overpower, but it is this spice that you can absolutely notice if you're looking for it. And that's present here too. I hadn't really made that connection, even though I had brought up Happy Together just a couple minutes ago. But I get a very similar experience with this. It's just done in a different way. Again, I'm not too sure where the tension stems from in this track, but it's definitely present. And if you just handed me this track, no lyrics, no context, I don't think I would have walked away from it saying, "Oh yeah, this is probably meant to be a happy-go-lucky, love song." That's just not the initial gist I get from it. And I wonder how much of my original reaction to the first 15 seconds or so of this track were based on the comment, or how much of that I was actually picking up because I was still on that surface level read. So yeah, this is an interesting track. I have a lot of questions about it, I think more so than answers, but it is still very cool. Um, let's hit some lyrics. I don't think I have anything else to bring up. Yeah, lyrically, this is fairly straightforward. It just talks about the extent of this person's love. Many of the verses say that I will never stop loving you. There is nothing out there. Verse 1 says, "Why would I stop loving you 100 years from now? It's only time." Verse 2 says, "What could stop this beating heart once it's made a vow?" It's only time. That one makes a little bit less sense to me, but I think the idea is still that nothing is going to stop this beating heart. That my love for you will exist forever, once I've made that vow. Verse 3 says, lock this chain around my hand and throw away the key. I believe that is supposed to signify that, my hand in yours will lock them together, because that's how things are always going to be, and you don't need to worry about keeping the key because I'm always going to love you. And verse 4 goes back into the time, says, years falling like grains of sand, they mean nothing to me. But it's still that second and third verse that kind of throws me off a little bit. I kind of get the gist, but they're a little bit off kilter. They don't quite fit the theme that verse 1 and 4 lay down. And I'm not too sure that I understand the response of It's Only Time in the same way that I understand the response of It's Only Time for verses 1 and 4. The chorus is very straightforward, though. There is one change. The first time around it says rain. The second time around it says snow, but the idea is similar. It says, if rain won't change your mind, then let it fall. The rain won't change my heart at all. So no external force, be it rain or snow or anything, sun, whatever, none of that's going to change my heart. And if it's not going to change yours, then let it come. Very straightforward. And then the bridge is, I'll walk your lands and swim your sea, so marry me. Then in your hands I will be free, marry me. Yeah, I mean, this just seems like a straightforward love song to me. Uh, about somebody who's so smitten with somebody else who they're ready to marry them, to tie the knot, to have the forever and ever put at the end of their relationship, that they'll be together forever and ever, that as the marriage signifies. Yeah, everything in here is very straightforward. Well, most of it, anyways. I'm still curious if anyone has interpretations about what could make this beating heart, what could stop this beating heart, time, and lock this chain around my hand and throw away the key. It's only time. I understand the beginning of it. I don't understand the it's only time response on that one. It seems to be, unless he's saying that, there's no reason I would change because, again, much as I said in the first verse, it's only time. 50 years from now, I'll be the same person. The only thing that's different is the time. Which, I mean, I'll tell you, that's a very naive take. Time does a lot more than simply exist or pass. Lots of things happen with the change of time. So, I mean, maybe that's supposed to be the point of it too, is that this person is so smitten to a point of naivety. Maybe that's where like the tension is supposed to come from in the music. But otherwise, I think it's really easy to read this on the surface level and just see a song about someone who's so in love with the person that they're in a relationship with. And that's beautiful. Why is the song so tense? Why does it have this gloomy, dark underbelly to it? What is going on in the song? Why was there no resolution at the end? Why did we decide to have two extra lines? The two extra lines at the end are, why would I stop loving you 100 years from now? It's the repetition of the opening lines of the first verse without the call, without the answer to it. It leaves the song in hanging. It's a cliffhanger. Lyrically, we're only getting half of a stanza. Harmonically, we're only getting half of a chord progression. And it comes out of nowhere. The song is over. We are in our final outro instrumental. The song is winding down, and you bring this in just to leave on a cliffhanger, and it just exacerbates all the questions I have about the odd choices within the song that add tension and dissonance and a lack of harmony to it. It's, I don't know, man. I have a lot of questions here. I think I've broken it down as best I can, but I don't know that I've come up with any answers. And I'm kind of curious where everybody else sits on this, because these are my thoughts. For the magnetic fields, it's only time, but what are yours? You have anything to add on to what I said? Correct me on? Maybe give me your interpretation. Did you hear all of the odd tension that I did, or does it sound like a straightforward, happy song to you? I don't know. Let me know about all that in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, is a link for Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.